Hello, everyone. I'm so honored to get to be here tonight, to share with you, to share my thoughts with you, my ideas with you, but more importantly, to share with you my life's work, my obsession, Fringe. So I'm from Greenfield Park, which is just off the island of Montreal. It's sort of known as a low to middle class kind of community. There's a huge community there, community spirit that I'm really proud of, that I carry with me every day. I went to elementary school there. I went to high school there. I even went to church there. I went to a United Church where my mother, single mother, I have no siblings. My mother was the custodian. My aunt was the secretary, and my uncle was the treasurer. So needless to say, I spent most of my time not at school, not at home, but at church. And when I wasn't at church, I was going to dance classes. I went to the Cameron School of Dance, where I studied ballet, tap, Highland. I kind of tried everything at a different point, yeah? It's interesting, I met a lot of people when I was studying dance. People who I've made connections with. I still have those connections today. And what really draws us together in those connections, when I reflect on it now, were the values that brought us together. We would be there at the studio almost every day, dancing with determination, discipline, and sacrifice. Why? Who knows why? It was fun. We competed. It was great. But still today, again, these are friendships that mean something to me. They started in a place of value, yeah? So skipping ahead, I'm 17, I'm walking up Saint Laurent Boulevard in the Plateau. It's a beautiful summer night, I'm up to no good. I'm 17, why not? I see farther down the street, there's like a giant tent, and it's loud, and there's music and dancing, and I think, I want to be a part of that. Something's happening over there. Let's go check it out, I say to my friend, and she's like, cool, let's do it. So we walk up the street, walk into the tent, and sure enough, the place is packed. There are so many people, and they are friendly, and they're nice. And after a few minutes, I discover I'm at the Fringe Festival. What is the Fringe Festival? Well, I had no idea, to be honest, but it felt like the kind of place where I was invited to hang out at. I was invited to be a part of it, invited to talk about it, and have a good time. Before I knew it, that night, we were behind the info booth at the festival, telling people about a festival we knew nothing about. Something about the vibe in the air that night that really reeled me in right away. So I became a Fringe Festival volunteer, I became an artist, and years after that, I mean now we're 2016, but 10 years ago, they finally gave me a job. I begged them every day to hire me. Please hire me. I have no experience. I'll do anything. Well, you'll really do anything? Here's a mop. Here is a toilet scrubber. Have fun. See you in a couple hours. And then come back again next week and the week after that. 10 years later, luckily, it all worked out. I became executive and artistic director of Mainline Theatre, the company that produces The Fringe, that also runs a performance venue and a gallery. So about the Fringe, what is it about the Fringe? What is the Fringe? Well, it's kind of an interesting story. The Fringe started not in Montreal. It started in Edinburgh, Scotland in 1947. 2 years after the end of World War II, the town of Edinburgh, with partners all across Europe, decided to throw a festival, boost morale after the war. They put a festival together, named it the Edinburgh Festival. It was full of dance and music and theater and good times. The only thing that was missing were local artists. Somehow, somewhere along the way, the local organizers didn't think to invite the local artists to participate. So there was a group of 8 theater companies who weren't really excited about that. They decided to do their own thing, to self-produce and to show their works alongside this festival. They did it year after year, these 8 companies. New ones would join, people would leave. After a few years, the journalists decided to call it the Fringe of the festival. It's happening on the fringe of the Edinburgh Fringe, or the Edinburgh Festival, rather. It became a name. It became a movement. Now, Years later, 70 years later, in Montreal, we have the Montreal Fringe Festival. It's over 25 years old. We have 2 full-time staff members, 40 part-time staff members, 500 artists, 250 plus volunteers. And those numbers grow every year. It's become a national movement. We have fringes all over the world, all over Canada, the United States, Singapore, Europe, Auckland, you name it, there's a fringe or it's coming soon, yeah? What I find really interesting is that this idea, this movement, this concept started out of the action of 8 companies, 8 small groups of people, maybe a couple dozen. People power, yeah? They decided to do their own thing, and it's 7 years later influenced a whole generation of artists and a whole generation of people. People power. People power is a really important thing, but when I think of people power, I feel like we have to address power first. I feel power is often seen as a negative word, yeah? Power is evil, power is authority, power is control. Power can also be kind of a neutral word. You can go to good or bad, right? Let's talk about power in the good way. When I think of the word power, power and what it really means at its base is the ability to accomplish. The ability to accomplish. When you add in people and it becomes people power, it's the ability to accomplish absolutely anything. People power can accomplish anything. So how do we do this people power thing, right? It's kind of a weird thing to do. When you look at the Fringe example, we had 8 theater companies who reacted to a lack of opportunity to make something happen. Well, they had a reason to bond together to do something, yeah? Well, what do we have? I mean, we have TEDxMarianopolis, which is wonderful, but I think we need a little more than that. I think we need some values here, yeah? So when we think of people power, what is it that's going to bring us together? Is it as simple, again, as bringing us in a room? I'm not sure. I like to go to shows. I love concerts. I go to a Beyonce show. I'm with like 50,000, that may be exaggerated, 5,000 other Beehivers. Beehivers is what we call Beyonce fans, by the way. So we're all at the concert, we're jamming, it's a really good time. It's huge. We're all there to see the glory and beauty of Beyonce, who we believe in. It's a common thing that brings us together, but I'm not going to meet anyone, exchange a phone number, and go have coffee with them next week. What's going to happen? What's going to happen in our society that's going to bring us together? You know, there's the superficial reasons, but what's the real reasons? Again, it's the values. It's values that bring us together. It's interesting, our society is really based on values. For years, for a very long time, our society, past societies have turned to religion and faith. I think that something's happening here. Something's happening in Montreal. Something's happening in Quebec. While religion and faith seem to be an important part of what we do in life, while they seem to be important contributors to our thoughts, they help us develop our values, there's something else going on underneath as we lose faith in these institutions, as many have turned their backs on these institutions. Cultural enterprises, festivals, and events are slowly taking on the role of bringing us together. In Montreal alone, there's over 200 festival events annually. Montreal, by the way, is the festival capital of the planet, as far as I'm concerned, and I'm very proud of it. But what is it about it? It's the values. We want to feel like we're a part of something. We all inherently, deep down, want to be a part of something. And that's something that these festivals and events have brought us, are bringing us. It's happening more and more. When we look at the Fringe is all about diversity, accessibility, and artistic freedom. They're really important values to us. Anyone can be in the Fringe. They can do whatever they want. And the idea is that it's accessible for audiences, yeah? In Montreal, we have values, but we take steps to show that we believe in our values, yeah? So at our Fringe, what we do, and it's the case all across Canada, we have 4 principles. This is how our values are manifested. So the way we do our programming for the festival, it's a multidisciplinary festival, so anyone can apply. We have a system of quotas. We put names in a hat, and we pull them out. How does it sound? It sounds kind of weird, right? On paper, it doesn't sound great. But in reality, what it means is an open access for any artist, anyone to strut their stuff, show what they got. Sure, not all the shows are great, but there are some beautiful gems, beautiful jewels, des bijoux that come out annually. Again, there's no censorship on any of the work. Okay, so that's the artistic freedom part. It's affordable for artists to be in the festival. They keep 100% of their box office. And for audiences, we make it affordable for them to come. So tickets to our festival are $10 or less. That's a really important part of what we do. It's a reflection of our values, yeah? So I ask you this summer when you're walking around, when you're in the Montreal landscape, think about your values. When you're at a festival, what are your values? Look around. Are they being reflected? What values do you see around? How can you shape those, yeah? Curating community is something that we do together. You don't have to be a festival head to do it. You have to want. You have to want and go. It's an interesting thing. At the Fringe, when you're obsessed with the Fringe, we call it, you've got la piqûre Fringe. We use like hashtag Fringe buzz even. You say, I've got the Fringe bug. You know, do you have the Fringe bug? I got the Fringe bug. And we meet so many different people. When something is based on values, all the ethnocultural stuff, all the income class business, all that really piddles away. The example I think of, I was grocery shopping recently, and I bumped into someone who's a Fringe volunteer who I hadn't seen for a couple years, but I know he secretly shows up and helps out when I'm not around, yeah? He's in the grocery store, we have a nice conversation, we catch up, it's polite, he walks away. As he's leaving, I see that he's wearing a suit, he's got a really cool tie, nice shoes, yeah, and a briefcase, and I'm like, who is this guy? I don't think I've ever seen him dressed like this before. He's gone. I don't think about it too much. A couple days later, I turn on the news. 6 o'clock news. He's on TV. He's a lawyer for an important court case in town. And it kind of blew me away. I thought, we've never talked about this before. And I realized, I don't think I've ever really talked about a lot of stuff with a lot of people I meet. What is it that really brings us together? It's our love. It's our love for the diversity, accessibility, and artistic freedom. It's the values that bring us back together. So when we're brought together with our core values that are important to us, and you'll have your own as well, that brings people together to have people power. And then from there, we elevate our society as a whole. It can go quite far. You don't have to make a community. You don't have to curate a community. You don't have to design it. But I think what's more important is that you take some time to think about what your values are and how that's going to contribute to meeting other people like you. And then together you can create community together. Thank you.